You unlock this benefit with the key of Patreon. Beyond is another dimension. A dimension of thought. A dimension of speculation. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both waffle and substance. Of things and ideas. You've just crossed into the podcast zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trekking Through the Twilight Zone. This is an addendum to a previous episode. We're going to be going some Christmas style jingle bells for Night of the Meek, the remake. So this is just a little bit of an add-on to the original episode. So this was the remake from 86, is it?
85.
85.
From the first season of the 85 Twilight Zone. I think I'm right about that.
Yeah. It feels very 80s. I mean, this is the episode where a down on his luck alcoholic store Santa comes across a magic sack that enables him to give all the gifts to the poor kids in the neighborhood. And in this case, it sort of softens the heart of the store owner in a very sort of Christmas Carol kind of way. And actually has, I'm going to find his flaming name in a minute, but
Richard Mulligan, William Atherton.
William Atherton, there we go. Yes, the man that in the 80s was basically stereotyped, or sort of like, his casting call for his agent was, we need a mean, snide person. And you go, oh, brilliant. So he's obviously from Ghostbusters, he's from the first Die Hard and second Die Hard film. And obviously now plays a mean, horrible store owner. So yeah, what did you think of this remake?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I can kind of see how, I think it's essentially identical to the first. I mean, it is a trash bag instead of a Santa bag. I mean, I think what really excels here are the performances. I mean, essentially, I could totally understand it's your first season of the very first relaunch of the Twilight Zone. It's getting on to Christmas, and you need a Christmas episode. Right, let's dust off Night of the Meek from 1961 or 1960. So, right. Okay, that's fine. I mean, but for me, like Richard Mulligan, I know him from Soap. I know him from Empty Nest. He was the guy on Empty Nest. He's instantly placeable in my mind. William Atherton is sort of like, I know him from somewhere. I had to look him up. And I was like, right, the reporter in Die Hard and that guy in Ghostbusters. But both of those guys are recognizable, and they're both good actors. They're both sort of fun to watch. And it does look very 80s, and I think most of its fun just comes from those elements.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I think, like I say, it feels like a good Christmas episode. I mean, I liked the original. I thought the original was good, and I said that would probably enter my Christmas rotation. I think this sort of this adds. There was some. A lot of this works exactly the same, as you said. Sort of like however, this introduces a couple of things that are slightly different. I think is there's a bit more. There's magic early on. And at the end, it doesn't introduce an elf doesn't just sort of appear out of nowhere. It has a bit more of an interesting ending, which I think I like this remake ending better. But when he's drunk at the very towards the beginning, and he needs some money to pay for things, like some money appears in his belt, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. Whatever it is that's influencing this is already sort of. Does he give that money to the children when he goes outside?
Yeah.
Does he? Yeah.
Right. The bartender sees him through the window.
Yeah.
Right. So you also see like he's a good guy. And Richard Mulligan's very good playing drunk. I always think. I mean, if you do drink, you should get Blotto to play a Blotto character. Maybe not full on blackout Blotto, but I don't know. I always wonder, there are actors who say, I'm not, I'm too pure to do that. Right. No. I mean,
go full method
sometimes
acting.
you see somebody play right. It's it's method, but sometimes you see somebody playing drunk and you think, yeah, it's very hard to play drunk, to play really drunk, convincingly, especially viewed from a distance.
Yes.
So, but he does a very good job. I don't know what I feel about the magic stuff though.
Well, the ending as well. So in the original, it's sort of like the sleigh appears, there's an elf, and off they go. And in this one, like his suit it seems a bit cleaner when he puts on the beard, and the beard sort of fuses with his face, and he's now a bearded gentleman. Like it comes off, and he figures out he can go up the chimney.
And he sort of disappears in a cloud of fairy dust, which is like a very 1980s effect. It looks horrible.
Yeah, not just an 80s effect, an 80s TV effect that, like, they would do. Yeah, it doesn't look great, but I don't know, I kind of like this thing of him being like chosen, in this way, sort of like that was the cynical version of this becomes the Santa Claus with Tim Allen, sort of like, in '93. But no, I think you're right. I think he works really well. And I think that the some of the stuff as well, like when he's giving the stuff out as well, like you said, the crowds and all that thing. The one thing I would say, the difference is because it's smaller in the original. Whilst it's bigger, there's more people and he's doing this stuff. The intimacy of the first one, sort of that when he's giving the prizes out, because he goes to that church, doesn't he? Sort of like, and he gives to these other sort of like down on his luck friends and stuff. Those moments felt a bit more. I don't know, not authentic, but they felt I had more feeling for those because it was like smaller. They felt more of a connection in those than the bigger scene in this, where he's giving it to everyone.
Yeah, I felt like that was more believable in the original, partly because it does seem more intimate, and also he's got a Santa bag. I know it shouldn't make sense. It shouldn't bother me this much. But it's just a plastic black trash bag, right? I've got them in my garage. You can see what's in them. Yeah. And there's something about him sort of being surrounded by a mob of people. Well, and it's like, what do you want? And he's pulling this big stuff out of a little trash bag. You can kind of, with a cloth bag, you can kind of imagine, what's he up to here? Here, it's just like, there's no way this is not magic. And everybody knows it. So I found that that's sort of strained believability, even though I like the performances. I do think it's clever that they think about having the bag provide the receipts.
Yes, I like that.
Right, yeah. It's like a little logical thing that they think of.
Yeah, that was a fun moment where like the bag starts spilling out the receipts, and so it then it outdoes the store owner. One of the other things I thought was funny was there was two sort of like smaller moments where he's giving away sort of like say small items. He gives a guy a pipe and the guy's like, oh yeah, I saw a pipe just like that in so and so, and I always regret not buying it. He's like, well, there you go. And then this girl's brought up and the mum's like, yeah, she really needs some glasses because she looks awful. And then he pulls out a pair of glasses and she's like, oh my god, they look amazing. And I'm like, dude, that's that's just cruel. But anything you want anything, and you want. I was like, all right, fair enough. It just felt like a really sort of like 80s moment, but like in such a cruel way that the mum turns up and she's like, yeah. I was like, you must have chosen those for her. That's your fault. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes people can be oddly cruel in a familiar environment. But I mean, what bothered me about that is the pathos. Like somebody else is like, right, I want the Lex Luthor train set, or the Masters of the Universe play set that's the Eternia play set that's $200 or something, and this girl comes up and is like, right, I'd like to be able to see and not feel self-conscious about how terrible I look. I mean, there is this way in which, like, and you see it with the boss at the end. I mean, I like that they sit on the stoop and kind of has this connection, and that does work for me. But I mean, I am troubled by he seems kind of like redeemed, or he's at least calmed down a bit.
Yeah,
and that's nice. but I am troubled by like you're kind of rewarding assholes here, and that poor girl, like can you give her something else in addition to the glasses, right? Like, you know, it's like Tiny Tim is here,
Yeah.
you know. Give Tiny Tim, you know, a 20.
Yeah, yeah. Don't just give him a shiny new crutch. Like he doesn't want. Yeah, don't just replace the damn thing. Like for me, again, I often do this, but like, if she came up and was like, "We can't afford her new prescription,"
Mm-hmm.
you know, not just she looks awful, but like, you know, not just that they're sort of like they're geeky or whatever, but like, no, we can't afford to upgrade these. She's struggling to see. Like, oh, here's try these, and then she can actually see. At least then, like you say, it's not just, you know, you can see, it is actually providing something that's like a, you know, a benefit. So yeah, I agree. It's an odd one.
I like the idea that she's given the glasses and she immediately has a seizure. They're like, you know, well, I don't want to ask for a second thing, but you know, of course we don't have seizure medicine. You know, it's 1985. Nobody's helping us with anything, right? Okay, and I can just imagine this goes on, and meanwhile, some rich kids there going
insulin. You know, just, if you've got some of that, it would be useful. Yeah,
grandma just had a heart attack. You know, her brother's back, her older brother's back from the war. You know, he's not doing too well.
Yeah. And this actually comes to one of the points I wanted to make about this. This goes to the first one and this remake, because obviously, like you said, it is quite nice when he sits on the stoop with him, because it's sort of, but it's not, you know, it's that thing I've said about the Christmas Carol, the Scrooge kind of thing. Scrooge learns a lesson, like he sees the world in a different way. That's sort of the point. But with the store owner, the sort of Atherton, the William Atherton store owner, he doesn't see the world in a different way. He just gets beaten. Like, but like, you know, in this might be the first time he's been outdone. But it's like, it's not. You know, I get that. Again, it's one of those things of it being quite short. So I get the sentiment of, you know, there's animosity, and at Christmas they can see past it and all that kind of stuff. And he sort of, but there's no big thing of like, I now know the meaning of Christmas. You know.
No, he's still a capitalist pig.
Yeah.
You know, he's a capitalist pig who has the coat for his wife.
Yeah.
A fucking fur coat, you know, that he, you know, has berated his store employees about, you know, selling.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and then he gets this baseball that's signed. I mean, it does make me, I mean, I don't need him to recognize that he's wrong, but it does seem like it's this moment where he believes in the magic, or he's convinced of the magic. But I like that, but I also find myself thinking, first of all, you watched like glasses with a specific prescription come out of this bag, right?
Yeah.
And then subsequently said, oh, those are all stolen goods. Do you think your store sells those glasses?
Yeah.
And then secondly, like, right, okay, now that you believe in magic, what is the history of that baseball that's been signed by everybody? I mean, I assume God, or, you know, Santa and his infinite wisdom, you know, can make a baseball with perfect signatures of all those guys, but there's no history of that baseball. You know, is there just now like, it's like, could you wish for a Degas and it just comes out of the bag and they're like, right, there's a copy of that painting out in the world now. You know, we've got Guernica on another wall and I don't know how it got here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I know the receipts appear because it sort of helps the cause. You know, it sort of like it removes the sort of the illegality of owning those products. But it does sort of ask the question you say about this: do those things just materialize? Are they sort of like, you know, just the money, or are they being transported from somewhere else? Like, do they exist somewhere else and they're being, you know, is he literally stealing from a warehouse somewhere? In which case, if that is the case, like that ball did belong to somebody else, and someone's going into their prize collection, and there's going to be a gap where this prize ball was. So, yeah, it is.
What happens when those receipts don't coordinate with the you know, I mean, there probably in those days were carbons or, you know, some sort of record. I mean, at least there's a
There'd have been.
tape
I'm assuming there'd be
receipt.
timestamps on them and that sort of thing as well. So
Right. I mean,
yeah,
you know, and they go back and say, right. I mean, it's not physically possible to process all of these things, all of these purchases in this amount of time. I don't know. I mean, there are some logistical issues that become more problematic because this is a bigger episode with more characters
yeah,
and goes
exactly.
in these different directions.
Yeah. However, like you say, it being a Christmas episode, it does work on that front, on that sort of like, you know, the feel good and the sort of, you know, the redemption of the guy who's the Santa and all that sort of stuff. So it is a good remake, and it tries to sort of polish up and modernize a couple of things. So all in all,
Yeah.
I think it's not a bad remake. And does some interesting stuff. Any final thoughts then about Night of the Meek? Remake?
I mean, you know, it's fine. I do like the idea of Santa being chosen for the next Santa being chosen for his good. It's a passed down legacy that, you know, right. I mean, obviously you mentioned like Santa Claus and stuff. And what about you?
No, yeah, I think it's everything really. It is good. I enjoy it. It's got you know, like you said, the performances are good. It works. And it's nice. It's just a, you know, I do like the original. I think there's something about the original I kind of like, which is a bit more intimate, that I think is a bit more Christmassy, weirdly. Yes. Anyway, that's it. That is us for the. We'll keep it sort of on point for that one. That is the Night of the Meek from 1985. So when we get there into the 1985 versions, many years in the future, we will skip over that one because we'll have no point doing that again. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. I hope you're having if you're listening to this at Christmas because you've been to find this, have a very Merry Christmas. If it's not Christmas, just have Christmassy thoughts. There you go. That'll make you feel better. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and we shall speak to you on the next episode. Ready to do the wrap up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trekking Through the Twilight Zone. We've been going through the Twilight Zone episode by episode, and we have completed season 2. We've done it all. And Julian, are you ready to recap and wrap up on season 2?
Absolutely. Woohoo! 29 episodes in comparison to 36 for season 1. So this will be a little easier. God, can you imagine any show, I mean, outside of a talk show, doing 36 scripted episodes in a year? I mean, 29 is, you know, these days, if you do 8, it's considered, right, you had a full season worth of stuff.
That's it. How many is it? I was just checking. Well, season 3, as we're going into, has 37.
Yes.
And it goes back to, like you say, it goes to the longer ones for season 4, and it's 18, and then back to 36 for.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Twilight Zone really was sort of like, we're doing it. We're going hell for leather on this one.
Well, and back, I mean, I remember like when I was a kid, you know, like 26, literally half the weeks of the year. Then you'd run each run once. 26 was considered a normal number for, you know, network. Now, of course, it's, you know, that has dwindled. I mean, back then, you wouldn't rerun most of this stuff.
No.
Right? I mean, you'd have 36. You'd have the other weeks, you'd rerun something, or, you know, you'd have a special or whatever, but that preempts it. But, you know, you didn't have that many rerun weeks. These were intended to air once. I mean, but literally the sponsor wanted new episodes every week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's crazy to think of how much that's changed and what a different model we're in now. Mostly for the better, right? Because you have time. But I also think, like, as a writer, how cool is it to have the adventure of making a new episode every week, right? If, like, I've got to write this, perfection isn't an issue. And people love a lot of these episodes that are clearly imperfect, clearly, you know, maybe rushed, but they're going to be somebody's favorite. Yeah,
I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think one of the things we point out, as we have done regularly, like, especially the ones that you've called out, like that are classics or as held up as something, and we go like, well, yeah, you know, it has issues or it does this and does that. But actually, like you say, there's one of the things I'm learning as we've gone through this is obviously you've got to appreciate, like I said, the speed at which these were written and made, the era in which they were released, and so you sort of get a feel for an episode. So there might be ones I can sort of like criticize. I mean, we're going back to a couple, even to the more recent ones we talked about, and we talked about my like for Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up versus the Rip Van Winkle caper. And so like we both acknowledge that those are imperfect and they have issues, but you sort of get like a feel for them. You get like a something from them that's quite enjoyable, or like you can relate to them. And I think that's the case, isn't it?
One of them tickles you, right?
Yeah. Just one of them just reaches
Same
and
here.
just like, and that sort of thing. So it's like I can see that, and I was going back through these. I've got the list in front of me, and I'm just looking at them and going like, yeah, that was quite a good one. That was quite a good one. I think there's ones that I think I consider classics. Where I'm like, yeah, maybe not for me. That one. I don't need to go back to that one. But yeah, there's some in this that I think are actually really good. This is a solid season overall, I think.
Yeah, I do think there's a stretch there that starts with maybe episode 16, A Penny for Your Thoughts, with a penny that lands on its side. There's sort of a stretch from there to debatably kind of like 100 Yards Over the Rim, 26. So that is
100 Yards Over the Rim is 23.
Oh, okay, 23. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, there's a sort of stretch there. I guess that's not that many. It's sort of 8 episodes where there's no real standout.
No.
That's sort of, I mean, I like 100 Yards Over the Rim is probably my favorite of those. But, yeah, it is. But not by that much. I mean, we've sort of seen that story before. And so I do think there's sort of some lean episodes in here, but none of them, I mean, I have my notes, and usually a really bad episode of The Twilight Zone, like Static, is in there. That's the old radio that plays the radio that plays old shows, and it's another sort of like wallow in nostalgia, and it has the twist ending, they're young again. That is, for me, a 5. And that's, a very weak episode. But other shows, if they have an occasional 5, are a really strong show that I'm telling people you've got to watch.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. I mean, I'm looking at that stretch as well. I think like Static was okay. I think back on it and I think, yeah, it wasn't too bad. There's some moments in it I kind of like, and there's some sort of ideas and themes. But the one I think, we talked about that I actually really liked, but I think it had the possibility, the potential to be so much more, is The Long Distance Call.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was like, oh man, that could have gone dark, and it had some real sort of like multi-generational sort of like ideas and things about sort of, influence of grandparents and stuff. And I was like, that's really good. But like you say, it's got that potential to be like, oh, they could have really made that really dark. Like they could have gone somewhere with that. I appreciate it's 1961. It's not something they're going to do, but yeah, I agree. There's some, but then again, the opposite of that. I think I'm looking at this, and there are episodes that I recall, I remember. There are certain bits that sort of stand out. Like we'll get to one in a minute, but where is it? The Howling Man. There it is.
Yeah, let's go through and just talk about our favorites.
Yeah. Well, the ones that really stuck for me, I'll just sort of call them out. I mean, The Howling Man.
This is the devil one.
Yeah. It was really interesting. I love this idea of it, and it had that fantastic transformation as the guy sort of walks from across the pillars, and it has that like a really cool ending. So it's that stood out to me. If I was to give like a top 5, I'm just sort of looking at. So you got The Howling Man. I'm going to leave out Night of the Meek because it's a Christmas episode and I enjoy it, but like I I think the one we both agreed on was The Invaders.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's definitely in mine. One of the ones I think I criticised at the time, but I have since sort of like thought about quite a bit, is The Silence.
Yes.
I think that the potential of the long distance call. I'm trying to think. I'm struggling to sort of suggest some of the others actually. What about you? What others? Throw out some names, and I think I can go.
I mean, I really like, although I wouldn't put it on my list, A Thing About Machines with
was good.
The phone that comes alive, and I mean, if you're talking like long distance call, where it's not a great episode, but it has the potential to be a great episode.
That's the one where the car goes after him at the end, isn't it? But you can see the
exactly.
driver. Yeah.
The car chases him into the swimming pool.
Yeah.
I mean, like I remember that, and I still think it's like a 6. It's not one of the best of the season, but it's a sort of personal favorite, I think, along the same lines as the long distance call, where I can sort of see how this could be a really amazing episode.
Yes.
I think for me, Eye of the Beholder is such a classic episode. We criticized it, but it still feels like a classic episode. This is the one with the woman with the facial scarring.
Yeah, I have thought
bothers
about
you
this.
more.
Yeah, it's not that it bothers me. I think it's one of those that I think we went into that one knowing it was a classic. It's one of those ones I think gets referenced, and the design of the faces gets referenced an awful lot. Like even on like packaging for like the Twilight Zone and stuff, like a lot. And so it's one of those where I was going, oh, okay, this is one of the classic episodes. And then whilst I get the intent of it, I still feel a bit like, I even like the way it's done. Like, they keep things in shadow. I think, and again, I think the original was better than the remake. I don't know. I think because it's so sort of well known, and when I finally watched it, I was a bit like, oh yeah, I guessed the twist pretty quick.
Yeah.
Sure. And so it's got some great shots and stuff in it, and it's well done to hide faces throughout, and that it's very well done. But I don't know. I just feel like the twist is it doesn't. It's not. It didn't blow me away enough to be like, oh, that's a classic. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see more of its flaws, especially going through it with you, than I have in the past. And it's one that I remember really well, but going through it seems sort of tedious. And also you notice all of these flaws, in the way it's shot, But I mean, it's still good. It's still something that I would say, like, you sort of have to see to know the Twilight Zone. And I'm not willing to say, like, Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up is kind of a classic, but not as much of a classic as that. Like, you pointed out that its imagery of the woman with the face is used on so much. That, I don't know, it still feels like a classic, even though it's not necessarily one of my favorites.
Yeah. I can see why it was held up as a classic, but again, I'm not sure I'm all that tied into it. One of the unusual ones for me, I think back on and I kind of enjoyed, and I think what we called out sort of like the silliness of its ending and stuff, is A Most Unusual Camera.
Yeah, that's on my short list as well. Yeah, and that's a sort of, I think that also comes off as a classic. The camera takes photos 5 minutes into the future. I think maybe you liked it a little more than I did, but I mean, to me, that's a solid 7. It's a solid, good episode.
Yeah, it had the slightly silly ending where they all go out the window, and it was, it felt a little bit rote. But up until then, I thought the build up and the use of the camera and stuff was really clever. And so I that's when I go back to it. It's even the characters in that, although they're supposed to be that sort of like, slightly Weasley sort of, he's a petty thief and that sort of thing. They play him for comedy, so they're not irredeemable. It's sort of, it's done to be, you can support, you can back them without feeling like, oh, these are scumbags. Unlike some of the other episodes, like you say, where I'm trying to think, there's a couple where you're like, yeah, I just can't. You're not supposed to like them, I suppose, but like the Prime Mover would be an example of a similar thing where you have a small group of people, but like the Prime Mover was about the guy who can
uses telekinesis.
Uses telekinesis to move the dice, doesn't it? Yeah. And that's somewhere I was just like, I just don't like you. I don't want you to win this scenario. I don't want this to work out because I just don't like you.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and there are a lot of this, like the guys, stuck in the room, waiting for the call.
What's that? Is that the nervous man in the $4 room?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's from the first season, where you like that more than I did. But a lot of times, and he ultimately sort of repents and tries to become a goody-goody. But yeah, I mean, you're right that Most Unusual Camera, the criminals in that one are less. They're petty. They're remarkably petty, but they're still likable.
Yes.
In a way that some of these other criminal characters are not. I thought The Trouble with Templeton, episode 9, is actually stands out for me a little more than Most Unusual Camera. Although Most Unusual Camera is definitely on my short list. And Trouble with Templeton is one that doesn't stick in my mind. It doesn't feel as classic, and yet it's much more postmodern with an actor who misses his dead wife. He goes back in time and he finds out that all of these ghosts or whatever are reading from a script. That the afterlife is scripted, and they're sort of trying to get him to embrace, life isn't over yet. Yes, you have parts that don't matter as much, but you're still an actor. Be a consummate professional, and you have a last chapter to your life that you embrace as fully as you can. And I thought it's so unique. It's really great.
And I remember because there's some great moments in that, because again, it's the way it's structured. It feels like it's one of those. It pulls the rug. Is the kind of way that it does it. When he goes back and his wife, the younger version of his wife, sort of treats him dismissively, and it sort of even suggests she's having an affair and all this other stuff. She's like intentionally trying to be hurtful and stuff, and you're a bit like, oh well, this is all about how looking back with rose-tinted glasses and how the truth can be different and all this other stuff. And then he goes to leave, and they all just sort of stand there and watch him leave. And there's that moment they're a bit like, I hope it worked, kind of thing. Like it was, and you're like, what? So yeah, I agree. That's a well done episode. That is a fantastic episode, actually. We mentioned let's talk. Let's just recap on. Sorry, you got anything to say about Templeton before we because I wanted to revisit.
No, I think it's unique. It doesn't have that sort of classic feel where it's going to be on everybody's list. And a lot of these episodes have that theme of nostalgia in one way, right? Like going back to 16 millimeter Shrine. But this is a different take on it that seems to work and add to that theme. What were you going to say? Moving on.
The one I wanted to revisit was the Invaders. So I sort of mentioned it. And I think we both sort of enjoyed how small, how this is really held together by a single woman, the woman's performance. And it's not one I'd ever heard of. It's not one I knew was held up as a classic. So it was a delight to find this episode. I'm like, oh wow, this is weird and ace. Yeah, this is brilliant. So
for me, that is the best of the season, bar none. I have that rated higher than any of the others for me. And this is with the miniaturized aliens and the other thing is it's so dark. It's so yes, there's the special effects, there's the doing miniaturization, size difference kind of stuff. There's on an effect level, it's interesting, but it's also so grisly, right? I mean, these astronauts jamming a knife out and cutting somebody's hand. There's something so horrific about that in the classic sense of horror. Doesn't pull its punches.
Well, it feels like, in some ways it sort of could be played for comedy, but it feels like a home invasion horror.
Mm-hmm.
This woman's home, that she is isolated and she's alone, and she is under threat. Like, it feels like an under siege kind of horror. And so, yeah, it does. It really sort of leans into that, which was quite surprising, to be honest.
Yeah, and it really conveys that sense of horror. And it's so weird that it's an alien invasion show, right? Yet it couldn't be further from like Independence Day, from the, sort of balls to the wall version of alien invasion. Very quiet, very subtle. The aliens are small, and yet really horrific. It has almost like a Gremlins like kind of quality of like, where is this thing hiding in my house? And then also has the twist ending that, in fact, the invaders are U.S. Air Force, and we're not on Earth. We're on some sort of alien planet of giants. But, another thing is how many episodes, and Serling admitted this, rely on that twist ending. And I think that this is one that the twist ending augments or supplements what you've seen, but you don't even need it for this to be a good episode, right?
No.
And it's just it's icing on the cake. For me, that makes it extra special.
No, I agree. I think, I think back to the episode from, is it Third Planet? In the first season, where that is that twist. I've got it, but it's that twist is the episode. Like, it's all sort of like, it sort of shows this thing, and then the twist is, we are not, we are heading to Earth. We're not on Earth. We are heading to Earth. You go, okay, cool, fine. But like you say, with this one, with the invaders, like, the whole episode doesn't hinge on the reveal. Like, if they were just little aliens invading a woman's home, that is like weird and horrible enough. Like you say, it's just that little bit of gravy that's like, okay, that's cool, that's a good idea, let's go with that. So it never feels like, it's not like although it's a good twist and a nice surprise. Like you say, it's not like that changes, that. It's like, no, brilliant, that's cool. It's an addition. So, yeah, I agree with that. It's a well done episode.
And that's a good reference. For the record, I had to look it up. It's the Third from the Sun.
Third from the Sun,
is the title. I think that you're not being totally fair to that episode. That it does sort of work, but it works as like a espionage, like a Cold War kind of military base. Sort of, story, but you do have to sort of suspend disbelief about what the wider world is. You sort of think there that it is a dystopian kind of post, sort of Russia and U.S. escalation, maybe a little fascistic in the U.S. The military seems to have control, but it's very vague. And here, because it's just limited to that house. The other thing is the sort of like, I grew up around cornfields, the sort of children of the corn isolation, right? Like, nobody's coming to help you in this little farmhouse as these alien invaders are there. But you're right that it does compare favorably of those two, and for exactly those reasons.
Yeah. And I think of the two, obviously, I prefer the invaders.
Yeah.
I want to call a couple out. We've talked about goodies, right? Yeah. So let's talk about duffers, to be honest.
Well, can I finish and just say, while we're talking about the good ones, would you put With a Real Martian Please Stand Up on that list?
If I was going to shortlist it. Top 5. I'm probably going to say, it may not actually make it. Now I think about it, you've got The Silence, which I'll definitely go back and watch. The Invaders. The Howling Man.
So yeah, I mean, I know sort of like
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Long
I mean,
Distance Call would probably beat it out for me.
I've got Eye of the Beholder, which you wouldn't put on
No.
there. I wouldn't put Howling Man on my sort of top 7 or so. So we have a sort of difference there. I've got Trouble with Templeton, Most Unusual Camera, both
I think
make
I
it.
put the Most Unusual. I was just deciding between those two. I think the Most Unusual Camera slightly because I think I have more fun with that episode, and then the Trouble with Templeton as well. So it would probably be in the top sort of like 10, 7 so of the season, but not in the top.
Yeah, I sort of feel the same way about the Rip Van Winkle caper, which is sort of my With a Real Martian Please Stand Up, and The Obsolete Man. That both of those sort of make my certainly extended sort of top 7, 8 kind of list.
Yes.
The one that makes for sure my top sort of 3 or 4 is The Silence.
Yeah.
And that is just the $500,000 bet to in the Gentleman's Club, and I think one of the reasons why it does for me is it's played well and it has multiple twists. It's fun along the way, but it does not sort of rely on that twist to make sense the way you were talking about. It works as just like a really good, intense 30-minute stage play that then, also is kind of resonant, especially in our sort of late stage capitalist moment of sort of what you're willing to do with money for money, but also the emptiness of the moneyed classes.
Yes.
So for me, that's on the short list.
Yeah. The Silence is good. I think like you say, you say about being like a stage play. It's one of the few. There's a couple in here, like I say, that feels like a contained performance in that way, and I think I definitely like that about it. Yeah.
Okay, so if there are any other good ones that you want to highlight, let's do that, and then let's move on to the stinkers of the bunch. So,
I think there's a few. There's a few where like they had moments. We talk about. I would also throw in sort of like Night of the Meek. I enjoyed that as a Christmas episode. I slightly taken it apart because it being a Christmassy one, but it's well done. I like it. It works. It would probably be in that sort of that area for me. But even like back there, the guy who goes back in time to the assassination of Lincoln. Large portions of that episode don't work for me, but there's a great shot. This idea of the whole time travel thing and the way that the time travel was done, which we didn't have like massive special effects. It's just done through some lighting and some bits like actually that and some of the stuff at the beginning really sort of like the opening of the episode up to the time travel stuff. It really works. I think it's a really sort of clever ideas using what they had. So that I think that's worth sort of calling out.
This is sort of the time slip at the rich club.
Yes.
Where he just goes back. He's in time and tries to stop the Lincoln assassination.
Yeah. And the other one that I liked that had a great shot was The Lateness of the Hour. And it's the one where the girl starts to question her life, and it turns out that the servants are all robots, and then the twist is that she is. But there's a couple of bits in that. There's a couple of moments in that where we sort of there's some logic flaws in that when you're like she questions why one of the servants hasn't aged at all during this time stuff, and you go, well, you shouldn't have aged because we find out you're a robot, and why have you not questioned this and that? But there's that shot where you have them all in the hallway and up the stairs and stuff, and it was really sinister and really sort of really well done. As the sort of the dad is due to turn them all off or dismantle them and stuff, and so there was moments in that I was like, that was really cool. That was really good. It was again quite a sort of well self-contained sort of like stage play. But again, like, when really scratched out, it didn't quite stand up. So those were two I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, I like the lateness of the hour is an interesting one. I don't think it would be in the running for, my best of list. But I do love the Twilight Zone Android episodes. They seem to always be kind of interesting, or have those images that you're pointing out that stick with us.
Yeah, and again, like I said, just sometimes with these episodes, you get like there's just a moment or a shot or an effect or like a scene. Like the episode may not be great or it's not up there, but there's a scene or there's a moment you're just like, that's ace. Like that's really good. Like it just nails it in that moment, and that's kind of what I like about some of these. Do you want to give some of your duffers then? Let's have a talk about some of the poorer efforts.
Well,
I'll throw one out.
I know for certain what is the worst one for me, and that's Static.
Okay.
But I've got that as a 5. I sort of rate them as I go along. And for me, that just doesn't work. But even then, there's a good version of that episode. We could, in our usual way, decide to rewrite it on the fly and turn that into a compelling, good episode. I like the old radio that plays that, and the idea of sort of, is the old man crazy? But that is the least successful episode for me. And then I've got a whole class of ones that are not as good. But all of them are, looking back through them, all of them are ones that I even hesitate to point out because, I like them. I remember them. What about you?
I'm not going to hesitate.
Okay. Do you have a standout for worst?
Yeah, I would say Static is not the worst for me. I definitely liked it more than you did. The one that I think back on and irritates me the most is Mr. Dingle the Strong.
Yeah.
It felt like I know they're going for sort of like a comedy episode, and so obviously comedy can age and something like that. But it just, that episode just doesn't hold up or hold together. Even like thinking back on it, all the sort of like test of strength, and the guys they get to bring the cameras in, and everything sort of fail, and then he becomes like a huge intellect at the end. Like it's just, like that's not how it works. Sort of the whole thing, sort of like just That's my bottom of the barrel. That one, Mr. Dingle the Strong.
It's definitely not great, and yet it kind of has a sort of classic feel to me. It is sort of silly. I mean, you're right, and we talked about it and ripped it up. What's weird is that, the end of Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up, with like both Mars and Venus are here, and they kind of look just like humans. I mean, they do look different in both that and Mr. Dingle. But Mr. Dingle, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's very silly. But the acting is fine. And I do, if you're going to do Mars and Venus kind of meddling stupidly, I kind of feel like let it be stupid, and it's definitely a sort of stupid episode, but it has a kind of charm for me that keeps it from even being in my, stinker class.
It didn't. It definitely didn't have. It didn't charm me in the same way, I have to admit.
Fair.
Okay,
yeah. So other who's on your stinker list that you're not going to? Who else? That's the worst one for you.
Yeah. Well, the one it was a bit of a sort of an odd start. So King 9 Will Not Return was another one where I remember we watched it and was like, oh, this is not a good start to the season. It tries to play with certain things, but that's another one that's sort of like, again, there was some great shots in it, when it's got the plane and stuff, but like the ending doesn't really work, and I just found it sort of tedious, and so that one was a poor start. And Yeah, the first two really, because the Man in the Bottle sort of is not bad, but like I don't know, those two sort of, and they're not the worst, but as
I
it
found
back to back, I was a bit like, oh, okay.
for sure, and I have King Nine Will Not Return as also on my sort of not the worst, but of my sort of 5.5
Yeah.
kind of zone. For me, the Man in the Bottle is a little better.
Mm-hmm.
But King Nine Will Not Return, I agree. Like, there's a great episode there. I remember it, and yet sort of nothing works. It's just a fantasy, but there's sand in his shoe. I mean, yeah, nothing works. Right. And then sort of actually for me, Nervous Man in a $4 Room is on that list
Okay.
of sort of weak ones. And for me, that is as weak as King Nine Will Not Return. For what it's worth, I know you like it better.
Oh, I did. But what's interesting is I liked it in the moment, but I couldn't tell you much about it now. Like, it hasn't stuck with me. I remember a couple of the shots when he's talking to himself in the mirror,
Right.
and that's about it. Like, I remember it's got so like you say, it's got a redemptive end. But yeah, I liked it in the moment. I definitely liked it more than you did when we watched it. But yeah, I don't know. It hasn't stuck with me like some of the others, which makes it very middle of the road. Like, it's not bad enough that it's standing out for me to be like, I remember this, and I could talk about it and tell you why it's rubbish again. But it definitely hasn't sort of like leveled up to be like, oh, also I remember this. So yeah, I don't know. There's something. Yeah, it can't have been as good as I thought it was at the time, maybe.
You know what's interesting is the next one that I have that's in that sort of low category is Nick of Time with Bill Shatner, and I remember that. I mean, the sort of him sitting at the table and saying, "Right, let's just get another," sort of being enslaved to superstition, and yet it doesn't really go anywhere. But I find myself thinking, if a Bill Shatner one that I remember, about being enslaved to superstition is on my worst list, that's a pretty good season, right? Like I remember these episodes. They're not terrible. They're just not that fun in the moment. They don't really work. But yeah, I mean, for Nick of Time to be on my worst of list, that's a pretty good season overall.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's one of those ones that I was looking for it, but yeah, it was fun. But and again, I remember defending it, a little bit more. Like, there's some ideas in there that work for me. There's some ideas where I'm like, oh, that one's kind of cool. That sort of idea again of them having to, you know, the possibility of knowing the future gives you this need to know more. Like, you can't get yourself away from it, and so I kind of like that. But as you say, it doesn't. I can't remember a great deal more about it. I know it was the slot machine in the diner, and so again, it hasn't really. And I know Shatner's in it, and we were saying that he's basically a little bit of a bully towards his wife or his wife to be.
She should just cut this off, right?
Yeah, basically, sort of like, read the room, time to leave. And so yeah, I don't know. It was an odd one. I like some of it, but it's definitely sort of that middle of the road where I was like, oh yeah. I think it's sort of there was a moment that I kind of like when they do walk away, and they drive. You see them getting in their car to drive off, but then you've seen there's a couple that come in that haven't managed to get away.
Yeah.
And so that sort of elevated a bit where it's like, because if it was just them leaving, and I was like, well, that's easy. But to see that there's an alternative where they could have been trapped and they could be sort of still going on was a nice touch. Right. It's a very middle of the road kind of episode.
So what else is on the cusp for you? Of really not the worst, but being potentially and that worst 10.
Yeah, the two. Again, it's that thing of potential. I find that a lot with these episodes of, it could have been really good. is 22, which is the dancer who's in hospital and has a reoccurring dream of, she drops the glass, she hears the footsteps, she goes outside, sees the nurse, and then it's all really creepy. And then at the end, it turns out to be she's in Final Destination.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, cool. Well, that clearly influenced Final Destination and stuff. But like, there was some, again, really well shot, some interesting ideas. But again, it's like, it was just shy of being, it was slightly, weirdly, the episode's slightly irritating in some aspects. But again, I'm watching it going like, this is really cool. There's a really good idea here, but it doesn't quite pull it off, and in that way that I'm like, which makes it frustrating.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I think that is, it's idiosyncratic ultimately, which ones we think are fine and which ones we think are, annoyingly lacking, right?
Yeah.
Like the 22 is fine for me. It's just, I agree with all of your complaints about it. It doesn't really work. It doesn't, really go further. But for 1960, sort of, at this point it's 61, sort of doing Final Destination, maybe I just get turned on by mass murder, turned on by death, like they blow up a plane. I don't know. I mean, it's morbid with dreaming of the morgue and all of that. Maybe that stuff just works for me a little more than it does you. And so it's sort of fine rather than getting into the annoyingly lacking kind of area.
Yeah. I think it's that I'm disappointed with it because it's such a good idea that I'm like, oh man, this could have been so ace. And it's not, so yeah, even with some minor tweaks, I think it would have crept up a little bit more. I want to throw one in now that I think you and I disagreed on. And I think back on this one, and it's Dust. And again, I think to the end of this one, and sort of like, it's again, it starts well. The idea is okay, but like the whole thing with the hanging at the end, and why people do what they do, and then you just have a sort of like a laughing dirty cowboy at the end and stuff, like, is it magic or not? Like, it's, I don't know, it's the whole sort of like third act of that episode just doesn't work for me. But I know you liked it and you sort of really took something from it. So
yeah, for me, I've got this at 6.5, so it's a solid point out of the sort of bad cusp zone. But I do agree with you that it is inconsistent, and I think that the Twilight Zone Wild West episodes have this problem. They all are lacking in some sort of key way, with the exception of the caravan, the time travels that we see. That's perfectly fine. But what is that one called?
100 Yards Over the Rim.
Oh yeah, I mean that's perfectly fine. It's not amazing. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Dust works more for me. I think I can make logical sense in my head. I have to do the work though.
Yes.
But you're right that it is not. I mean, there are elements of this, like that it's a Hispanic who killed the child, right? But that element is not. It's present, but it's not commented on, right?
No, it's not.
The rope breaks. I think I can work out that that's Providence, right? And the bereaved parents are struck by that miracle to forgive. That's also potentially groan-inducing, if not done great. And for sure, this episode is, inconsistent, right? So, I mean, I can easily see why you would be more troubled by it than I would.
Yeah. Yeah. And the final one for me is the Rip Van Winkle caper, which I know I have issues with. But again, like, I think again, it's one of those where, having spoken about it, yes, I have problems with it, but even the idea, sort of like, there's some ideas in it, and the payoff at the end, it's one of those where I go, well, there's ideas here, there's ideas, but they just it consistently doesn't work for me. Where the hit rate of if it not working for me is a lot higher than some of the other episodes. But I know it works for you, like in the same way that this is the reverse for the Real Martian Please Stand Up.
Right. I think the the Rip Van Winkle caper with a Real Martian Please Stand Up, and for me, Mr. Dingle the Strong. They remind me of. You remember it was in season 1 with the asteroid mausoleum episode.
Oh yes.
Which I quite like, and you quite liked. In both cases, we were willing to sort of pardon the problems there. That was episode 120, Elegy, where it's got the wax museum and all this. Like nothing of this makes any kind of sense, and yet it's kind of charming. I think that we're all on the same page that none of those are actually like objectively amazing episodes. They all fall apart for one reason or another. I'm willing to. Both of us are on the same page that we're charmed by the asteroid episode, right? And then the wax museum. It is charming. It doesn't really work. I find I'm able to get there with the Rip Van Winkle caper, and I'm able to kind of not get there, but at least forgive Mr. Dingle the Strong. I know, I hear myself saying that. I mean, I know you've got to get into that kind of like Batman 66 mode, right? Like it's bad.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I can see. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Whereas you can more easily get there with a Real Martian Please Stand Up, and I'm never going to say that is the worst episode, right? But I can. I'm more. I don't know. I feel like the conclusion there of gobbledygook, like the Martians and the Venusians, that fake. Maybe it's just that fake eye, that just bugs me in a way that Rip Van Winkle caper doesn't. I don't know.
No, I can see why. Different things.
But I don't think any of those are the worst.
No.
You would just say Mr. Dingle. Mr. Dingle.
Mr. Dingle the Strong
is the worst.
Is most definitely my worst episode of this season. Yeah. It's just, and sometimes I wonder if it's, what's the word, like a cultural thing, like American comedy of this era. Does it just not land in the same way with me at times? So that but then like you said about Batman 66, I like Batman 66, but that's obviously a slightly different kettle of fish. But yeah, I don't know, there's just something about that one that not really bothers me, but it's just sort of like yeah.
I don't know. If we're going to have Martians and Venusians screwing with us, I like the idea that, there's a very sort of Mr. Mxyzptlk element to Mr. Dingle, which I don't think Mr. Mxyzptlk has ever been done well, frankly. But I do like, if aliens are just screwing with us, right? The idea that they're just, screwing with us over such petty things that they're just running these nonsensical experiments. Like, right, what if this guy's Superman for a day? Everything out of our life is so stupid.
They're not really taking any. They're not taking any data from it. They're literally just like, see what happens. Like they're claiming to be sort of anthropologists. That's their thing. They're probably students that just claim to be anthropology students. They're like, what happens if we do this? Poke it and see what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. It is that dumb. But
Mm.
there's a charm to it that I find that you don't find.
Yes. Yeah, it's fine. It's but yeah. Any others that you want to throw out for whether it be good, bad, or ugly at this point?
Yeah, I think I've gone through the ones that I really think are the best. I mentioned Nick of Time is on the cusp for me. Static was the worst. The Prime Mover, that gambling telekinesis episode, is on the cusp for me. And that's about it. But really, if those are your bad episodes, I mean, your worst episode, I will actually defend. I will not say it's stunning, but I will actually totally defend it as, an amusing sort of bauble of an episode. And you will defend my worst episode, Static, as, totally adequate.
Yeah.
So, I'm shocked by how I do think this is a weaker season than the first season. It's also a lot shorter. But I'm surprised that, a case can be made for even the worst stuff here. And if William Shatner getting all superstitious is on the cusp for me, I actually, I remember that, and it's not bad stuff.
No, as you say, I'm looking through it now, and I'm sort of looking at the episodes. I'm just thinking, yeah, do you know what? Like you say, I've chosen my worst, but even some of those meh in the middle ones, where I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I think about the Odyssey of Flight 33, which I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. It's got, they're fine. But actually, like, if I was to watch them again, like, I wouldn't complain. Like I say, it's not the strongest of seasons, but it's not a bad season. I think the majority of the episodes are good. They're entertaining, at least that. I don't think any of them are. Well, no, actually, the King Knight will not return. Is struggles, but like the vast majority are very entertaining, where you can talk about them and they give us something. So, no, I think it's a solid season. I think it's a good run, to be honest.
Yeah, I do think that it feels more just kind of adequate and fair than the standouts are not as strong as the previous season. I mean, look, The Invaders is amazing. I think when I think about the Twilight Zone, I think about Eye of the Beholder. I think about the Rip Van Winkle caper, frankly. Those are ones that sort of, for better or worse, I do associate with the Twilight Zone. And I acknowledge their weaknesses. But they do have that sort of like, all right, these are classic episodes that you at least have to know, if you're going to know the Twilight Zone.
I can see that. I can appreciate that there are standout classics that I may not always 100% agree with, but I can see why, either of the era or through the decades, they have stood out as classics. So I can see why.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of keeps like 100 Yards Over the Rim from being worse in my mind. That it's sort of right. It's a time slip episode. It's perfectly fine. It does, but it just feels like so Twilight Zone to me. It just feels like so classic, sort of what this show is supposed to be. So I don't know.
That. I get what you. That's an interesting. I'm trying to think if there's a term for it, but like it's the essence, isn't it? There's like a Twilight Zone essence. Like the story and stuff can change, but there's a feeling that there's an essence that you just say, oh, that's like listening to a band. You can just pick out you listen to a band song and you go, oh, that's so and so. You may not have heard the song, but they play in a certain way. And there are certain episodes that do definitely go, oh, that's Twilight episode. Like there's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, and I sort of feel that way, even Mr. Dingle the Strong. I mean, even Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? I mean, I mean, I'm a fan of Rip Van Winkle. You're a fan of Real Martian Please Stand Up. But they both feel sort of classic Twilight Zone in the silly sense, right? I mean, there is a sort of like campiness to both of them.
Yeah. I wonder if one of those ones who say that, you know, the ones that do give you that feeling, they sort of have certain elements that they hit, don't they? There's that essence, as I say, and they have enough humor that it's sort of like, you know, it's not depressing. You're not going to come out of it thinking like, oh God, you know, it was good, but it was like a really depressing episode or something. Like there's an element of humor and campiness to it. Yet they're always trying to say something, or they're trying to sort of at least give you something. So, yeah, I think that there's a sort of a combination, isn't there? There's a recipe that sort of comes together to form those sort of like episodes that you go like, even if I'm not 100% behind it or into it, I get why people are. Like I can see how that combination will work. So,
yeah, good point.
Yes,
that's a good way of looking at it.
Yes. Anyway, any final thoughts then for season 2?
I mean, I think it's fascinating that I think both of us focus on the invaders. I mean, for me, that is the classic.
Standout. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, from then on, we disagree here and there, but, you know, we're pretty much in the same zone. You know, we appreciate one thing more than another. I think the silence holds up really well. But yeah, I think it's still an amazing show that I keep learning from going through. And, you know, its low points are, I could still think of a way in which they're kind of awesome. You know? And I kind of admire that they're that bad even, you know, Mr. Dingle. I mean, I kind of admire how bad it is.
Swing for the fences. Swing for the fences. Yeah. At least it does it.
Right. Commit to being unbelievably awful, you know, with such a rosy face.
I admire your commitment to being that ridiculous and stupid. Fair enough. Anyway, I often agree. I think this is really is. Like you said, some great episodes. It's a solid season. You know, I'm looking forward to sort of more. There's obviously more coming in season 3, and we shall see how that goes. But no, this has been a good season, and there were ones I will definitely go back and watch. Like I own all these now, so I'm definitely going back and watching some of these that sort of like that stand out for me. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, there we have. We've had season 2. We've done it. Please, you know, whether this is on the Patreon or later on, get in contact. What are your thoughts on season 2? Is it a standout episode? You know, a standout season for you? Do you agree with our choices and our sort of good, bad, and ugly? Have we massively offended you by ripping into, or me at least, ripping into Mr. Dingle the Strong? Or, you know, do you actually
offended you by defending it?
Yes, yeah. or do you think we are massively wrong and you think that the invaders is not the standout in this? Please let us know. We are welcome, and we want, you know, to know your thoughts. You know, you can find us. Well, this is when it's on the Patreon. Come put a comment below, or, you know, when this is out in the main feed, come out and check on the social media at 20th Century Geek, at PodTimespace. Come and let us know. But for now, Julian, thank you very much for talking season 2 of the Twilight Zone. And ladies and gentlemen, we should be back for the next episode.
My pleasure. Only 3 more seasons to go.